What's up, guys? I'm RatPack412, and this is my first ever game guide, and there should hopefully be many more to come, but today I'm going to be talking about diplomacy in Total War 3 Kingdoms. I'm going to try and keep it quick, but there's a lot to cover here, so with that, let's get into it, starting with the basics. Alright, so here we got a early game Conqueror campaign. I think it's like turn 30 something, 32. Uh, I'm already in the diplomacy tab, but if you didn't know, diplomacy tab's in the top left over by your character portrait. Uh, Now, if you look down the right, you can adjust by diplomatic statuses. And here's your color key for that. It'll let you know all the different types of statuses that you have. Uh, Dark green, almost teal looking, is best friends, and it goes all the way down to dark red, which is like you're very hostile with them. You're probably already at war. You've committed some war atrocities. It's going to take a lot of work to be able to trade and make deals with the hostile factions if you're already broken down to that point. To the left of that, you can sort all the different types of deals you have, all the alliances you have, coalitions. Like I'm giving this dude some food because he's a poor motherfucker. Alliance wars. It'll even show you vassals and things like that, even though I don't have any right now. Then you can sort by name. You know, almost never use that one. And then relative strengths. Now, relative strengths is pretty important. uh, the light green arrows are going to mean that you're stronger than them, and the dark red arrows mean they are superior to you, and the yellow dashes mean you're basically on par with each other. And this is based off of how many armies you have, how wealthy you are in your economy, the type of if you're in a big alliance, things like that. Now I'm going to click on Wan Shao here, and forgive me, I don't really know how to pronounce a lot of these names. I'm going to screw them up, but he is currently global rank 1. So he's literally the strongest faction in this campaign at the moment. You can see that by the arrows next to his name. Same thing with the the relative strength arrows down here, but this will give you a more detailed uh, look at it. Below that, you can see how much food he's generating, uh, how much money he has in his treasury that he has to work with in trade deals, how many commanderies he has. This isn't really that important. And his trade influence. Now, trade influence is going to directly uh, account for how much money you're going to get in a trade deal with him. So, like, if I go to quick deals, trade agreement, trade monopoly, this is a faction specific thing. So, we're just going to work with trade deals. Now, I already have a trade agreement with Wan Shao, but I can make one with Lu Dai. And as you can see, the value is 560, and this is based on not just his, but also my trade influence, which is affected, by reforms. A lot of the commerce reforms are going to give you trade influence. A lot of the commerce buildings will give you extra trade influence. And then in the reform tree, you can also get more trade deals available to you, so you can get more trades with different factions. Um, and this, one more thing to talk about trade deals real quick. Uh, Resources. Now, all counties have resources. So farm is just going to give you like food. Livestock will give you, that livestock. It's an actual resource there. Grain, fishing, iron, salt. There's more specialized ones like silk will be up in the northwest corner of the map up here along the Silk Road. You'll have tea, somewhere down here in the southwest, and spice is also down here in the south. Um, they're hard to get resources, but you can get them without owning the territory by doing a trade with someone who owns a county producing that resource. And now there are some buildings that require you to have specific resources available to you in order to even make those buildings. And some buildings will even create their own resources, like entrepreneurs from some of the commerce buildings, industrialists from some of the industry buildings, and you're gonna have to unlock those through reforms and to build them in your own settlements, and you're gonna need specific settlement levels and such and such. This is more for an economics guide that I'm gonna make later on though, so I'm not gonna go too in depth with that. Um, but a quick note on that also is, say you lose your trade deal with someone who has silk, let's say, and you have like a, a special, what's the port? It's like a silk port, silk expedition trading post. A building like this, if you lose that silk resource, that building is no longer going to produce. It's actually going to start costing you money. It's going to waste a slot in your settlement. It's bad news. So always, you're going to want to keep a good positive standing with your trade partners. Continuing on here, showed threat levels, diplomatic statuses, and the deals. Now, if you actually click on a character, it'll show who they are friendly with, what deals they have going on, and relative strengths compared to them. You click on any of these guys, it'll you see all these faces are changing. Now, possibly the most important thing, which I didn't realize until about 20 fucking playthroughs, you can hover over their names and see the faction leader's personality. Now, Liu Bei is a perfect example of a good guy. Virtuous Paragon, he's honorable, so he honors treaties, will not commit treacherous acts. He's much more willing to sign deals with respectful leaders in diplomacy and opposes the ones with a bad respect rating. Now, a bad respect rating is like this over here under my name. I'm untrustworthy because I broke a deal somewhere a little too early, and I took a penalty for that. And it'll always tell you when you're about to make a mistake like that, and you have to accept if you're going to go through with it. So don't worry too much about that. Just try and stay in a good standing for the most part. Uh, he's harder to bribe in diplomacy. He makes diplomatic decisions based almost exclusively on diplomatic attitude. So having a good attitude with him is like the only way you're going to be able to make deals with this guy. He's dependent, so very willing to become a vassal of a strong faction, but may still turn against a weak master. He admires power, likes large or aggressive factions, so lots of land, lots of a very strong army, things like that. He's virtuous, friendly and kind in diplomacy. Acting positively towards them or their friends greatly improves diplomatic relations. And he always releases captives, which I'll get into like war atrocities a little bit later, which is kind of ties into that. Now, the exact opposite of Liu Bei is Yuan Shu, this snake over here. He's arrogant, never joins existing alliances but may create new ones, hates if someone disagrees in an alliance vote. He's cunning, so treacherous, may opportunistically turn against friends or allies with enemies if that looks like a good opportunity to get a better position. He exploits strategic weaknesses of the enemy and targets undefended settlements. May unexpectedly break treaties with weaker factions. Diplomatic attitude only has a limited influence on diplomatic decisions. So you don't necessarily have to be friendly with this guy to make deals with him. He's hateful, reacts to negative diplomatic events harshly, and remembers diplomatic events for a very long time. So this is someone you probably don't want to deal with, or if you do, you never let your guard down with him and expect your deals with him to break. He's just bad news. There are other guys like this. Every single one of these people has different traits. Okay, and so it's always a good idea to look at who's nearby and be aware of their personality types and maybe form your alliances based on their personality types, or you want to have good people in your alliance. You don't want people who are going to turn on you like Wan Shu. Another thing to note is that say Liu Bei dies and his heir takes over, his son. uh, these traits are all subject to change. They could be completely different traits later on. And that will happen. These people will die either of old age or maybe they get killed in battle. Something's going to happen to these people. These are all going to change over time. Just something to be aware of. Uh, on top of that, as you see, I've been using this map here, which will shows a lot of things. Ownership, so everyone gets their own color. The two most important things being attitude. This is going to show who's friendly with you, who's kind of neutral with you, and really the most important thing, where your war fronts are. So like mine's up here at the end of the river. I'm going to showcase this a little bit later, what I'm doing up here. And then diplomatic statuses. Now this is super important. You can pretty much forget about wealth, population, public order, and food. Like those really don't matter. Diplomatic status, though, it's going to let you see who's a vassal master, and who's the allies of that vassal. It's going to show you who you're at war with and who your alliance is at war with. It's going to show you who you're allied to. I mean, again, there's a color code up here that you can look at. You can see your enemies' vassals, and this becomes very important later on in the game when people are vassalizing everybody. Uh, Coalitions and military alliances are being formed. You're going to be looking at this map a lot, especially if you're playing the diplomacy game, which brings just this whole new aspect to the game once you really know how to use it. So, I mentioned war atrocities. Now, I'm going to go into a hypothetical here. Say me and Yuan Shao are not allies, we're actually at war with each other, and Liu Bei is friends with Yuan Shao. Now, I go across this river, I sack a settlement, or I loot and occupy, or I execute his generals after a battle. These are all considered war atrocities of some kind, and I'm going to take a negative diplomatic standing hit with Liu Bei over here because he's going to see what I'm doing. He's not going to like it. Now, again, another hypothetical. Say Liu Bei was also at war with Wan Shao. They hate each other, and I do those same things. Liu Bei is actually going to like that. And so when you're fighting people, it's not always the best to execute everyone. I mean, I was doing that early on, but a lot of times you're gonna want a ransom. You're gonna get that extra money, which is a bonus. You might have to fight them later. It'll probably open up options to buying characters that you would have closed off with executing people, because again, for another video about satisfaction and relations between characters in the court and everything, you can unlock characters from other factions like Lubu, or you can even get Gongsun Du, or like any of these big deal faction leaders. They could become your generals if you play your cards right. So keep that in mind. Um, we already talked about trade deals and trade influence, but another thing you can do is you can trade territory. Now, in order to trade territory, you have to share a border with somebody that you're going to trade territory with. And for instance, like I could trade this livestock farm for this lumber yard here, even though why would I want the lumber yard? Let's be honest. But just for example, you would click Liu Bei, you go into negotiate, trade deals, trade territory. Let's see, what territory was that? Beihai? Livestock farm, confirm. And then I can go into trade territory again. That's Lang Yi. I want the lumberyard. I hit confirm. Now, it's not quite the deal that's going to work out, but I could always trade more things in order to get that territory and balance out that deal. Which is where the food and the money comes in. Like this guy doesn't really want money, but he's pretty low on food. So using food, you can probably get a lot more out of him. Food per turn. And now, side note, I was watching somebody's guide, and they were just ripping off the AI. They were really manipulating them. Uh, they were trading like 100 food per turn for a territory, and then they would negotiate, and then they would cancel the deal down here. So they didn't actually have to pay all that food per turn. They just got a territory for a minor faction hit. I'm sure this is going to get reworked at some point and balanced a little bit. But you can do some shicey things and manipulate the AI if you don't care about your trustworthiness. You can give them a bunch of money per turn or a bunch of food per turn for things. Uh, Maybe you want a marriage, or maybe you want some territory, or whatever it is, and then you can just cancel those deals per turn, and you get what you wanted out of it, and maybe you're like Wan Shu and you just shysted these dudes out of their shit. It's something you can keep in mind. Another thing about trading territory, though, so I'm in a military alliance with Liu Bei and Wan Shao, and just from game knowledge, I know Wan Shao is gonna eventually go to war with Gongsun Du and Liu Yu and Han Fu and all these guys. Now I can come up here and I can take this town. I think there's an iron mine back here or something, but I'm a trader. I'm not gonna. What do I want industry for? I want trade. I want food. I could always trade those territories that I captured for the fishing port in the city, or maybe something a little closer to home. It's always good to like plan ahead and know that you can always get territories out of your allies. Another thing you can do is say we're not at war with them right now, but war coordinations. Directing your allies to do specific things, like I can have uh, Wan Shao take specific settlements. I could literally have him claim all this top area here uh, by just telling him where to go each turn with a war coordination. Or I can't do it right now because I'm not at war with Hanfu, but I am under siege here, and so I will tell Liu Bei. I can tell him to attack this guy who's sieging me, and within the next turn, the next time he gets a chance to move, the closest army he has, he's gonna march it up to this guy. And then when we do have a siege, he's gonna show up as an ally of mine, and this decisive defeat is gonna be a decisive victory. And bye bye this dude. Uh, so you don't even really need to have armies if you have allies. Like you can play a totally peace. Well, it's Total War. There's no such thing as a totally peaceful game in a game called Total War. But if you're really trying to do the trade deals and you're trying to play a more diplomatic campaign, that is a way of doing things. Like with Kong Rong, this is more of like a faction specific thing. But for every army I get minus 35% to my trade influence. So I get a lot less out of my trade deals the more armies I get. So it's useful to have these allies that can do a lot of the heavy lifting for you while you're raking in the dough. Kind of pulling the strings from behind the scenes. So also deals, I mentioned, making deals over a set amount of turns. It's always better to ask for money per turn than it is to ask for a direct amount of money. You're gonna get more money this way. It's just gonna take a little bit of time. Um, same, you know, same thing with food and basically anything else. Uh, if you want to cancel a trade deal, it's gonna take a certain amount of turns. And you can see right here what type of standing losses or gains you'll get from canceling deals. And if you cancel early, it'll show you a prompt saying how many turns you have left with this deal. You always want to give it 10 turns at least so that you can remain trustworthy when you cancel a deal. And then I believe it's another 10 turns after that. Like say you have a non-aggression pact for 10 turns and you cancel that. It's like another 10 turns after that that you can actually declare war and not be seen as treacherous. Which again, it's going to affect everybody around you. In one way or another, depending on if they're friends or allies of the guy that you're screwing over. All right, now I'm going to talk a little bit more about the different types of coalitions, alliances, what a vassal is, liberation, confederation, abdication, annexing, all these types of things, because these are all different forms of diplomacy also. So if you look at Wan Shao, and you look at his personality traits, aims to create an empire of vassals and tributaries, never joins existing alliances but may create new ones. So, in order to get this military alliance that I had going on, I had to become friends with him. And he had to invite me to the coalition first. So, the way you do that is you make a non aggression pact or you start gifting him payments or food or give him some ancillaries, and especially the things that go on over 10 turns, any sort of like military access. The longer that you upkeep these treaties and stuff, every turn you're going to get a positive standing modifier with this guy. So like if you look, we're best friends, plus 82 from treaties with them, plus 50 personal friendship, which is just like the longer that you stay in their good grace, the better friends you're going to become, and the longer you're friends, the better that's going to be. Plus 26 supported us in alliance votes, so like anything that he ever asked me to do, I was like, yep, I'll do it. Uh, Plus 10 favorable deals with us, so I gave him like the better end of a deal. And plus 31 other values. Now I'm not really sure what other values are. They don't explain that anywhere that I know of. So if you figure that out, let me know. I have a few negative factors, broken treaties with them, broken treaties with our friends, treaties with our enemies. So let me explain that too. So like you're gonna get a lot of non-aggression packs early on, and it's in your best interest not to accept them. You're only gonna want non-aggression packs with people that you know that you want to like become allies with, because eventually you're going to have to break those packs. Eventually you're going to have to go to war with somebody, and a lot of these guys, when they give you a non-aggression pact, it's because you're stronger than them and they know that you're close enough that you can hurt them, and they're just trying to save their own butts. uh, Non-aggression pacts, man, they are a trap. So, be very careful with who you sign these packs with. They are most likely not in your benefit, even though they may seem that way. Um, a lot of times, if someone offers you a non-aggression pact and you don't plan on taking allies, you can get more out of it. You can request money per turn or some food for it, because normally it's something that they want, and it's up to you to take it. So you have the option of tacking on a little bit more to get the better end of the deal. Um, a coalition, like the one that Wan Shao invited me to, it's like a loose alliance. So what I mean by that is it's going to help you with any sort of diplomacy you try to do with someone who's in your coalition. You're going to get uh, positive, attitude towards you the longer you're in a coalition. But when it comes to going to war, they don't necessarily have to go to war with you. They're not, tied in that deeply with you. You're basically just good friends. Um, they probably will go to war with you if it's right for them. But that's where coalitions and military alliances differ. So a military alliance is like the next step. Me, Liu Bei, Wan Shao, we're in a military alliance, and what that means is if any one of us gets attacked, or if any one of us goes to war, we can call on our allies, and they are going to back us up. They will go to war. That's how I'm able to do these war coordinations against Huang Shao over here, this yellow turban guy. However, other coalitions, other alliances, other factions are going to see your military alliance, and they're going to get scared of it. They don't like it. It's a threat. Uh, the bigger you are, the more conquering you do, the worse your standing is going to start getting with some of these guys. So make sure you pick your allies carefully. You really want to like nurture these friendships if you're going to go for them. And they are very useful in the long run. Just something to keep in mind. Now, vassalizing someone is different. So, say you beat the crap out of someone and they only have like one or two counties left, or maybe they are surrounded by enemies, you have good standing with them, and they're about to get wiped out. You can make them your vassal. You'll get 20% of their income per turn, up to 8,000 gold. Uh, Both of you will automatically join wars together. So anyone who declares war on your vassal will also have to declare war on you, and vice versa. Um, and it could be a good or a bad thing. So you can also offer uh, subservience, which is becoming a vassal of somebody else. And this is good, say, if you have no allies. Uh, you have enough money to work with what you got going on, but like you're being attacked from all sides. maybe there's someone neutral somewhere. You can offer them, to become their vassal, and it'll stop all wars that you have going on, and anyone who attacks you after that is also going to have to feel the wrath of whoever you just buddied up with. So another thing you can do when trying to vassalize somebody is guarantee them autonomy. Now, what this does is it stops you from being able to annex them. Now, annexing a vassal would be taking all of their territory and their armies, basically everything they have except for the characters in their court, and it all belongs to you now. It's now like if I vassalized Han Fu and annexed him, Han Fu is now Kong Rong. He is no longer Han Fu. That faction is gone. It's destroyed. All the court is going to go seek employment. So you might be able to hire some of them, but other factions are probably going to hire them. You also take a big diplomatic standing hit when you annex someone with like everybody. No one likes when you annex somebody. So it's normally better to let them be their own people, guarantee them autonomy. You might have to fight them later. They might stop becoming your vassal once they, get back on their feet, but it's usually the better move. It also makes it easier to vassalize somebody. Now, I mentioned annexing. There are certain factions like Liu Bei who can annex the Hans. Basically, you march a army over to a empty Han settlement, and you can, take it for the price of money and not a fight. Same thing with Dong Zhuo or Dong Min, his kid. Uh, this little bastard. When you're Dong Zhuo, you can you start off the game with all the Hans vassalized, and you can annex their territories for a cost. Like you can go walk over here and take Hidong for free. Well, for like 5,000, or depends on the size of the settlement. It'll cost different, you know, amounts of money. But an interesting thing you can do, like I said, I was doing something shicey over here. Now I know I'm backed up over here, so I didn't need an army to defend myself. So I sailed my main army all the way down the river here, took my trade port. Eventually, I'm going to take Luoyang over here, and I'm sieging Chang'an. Now, whoever controls the puppet emperor here controls the Hans, and you can now annex the Hans as any faction. So, boom, the puppet emperor has been captured. Dongmin to Kongrong. The emperor has been captured once again. Now they are a mere pawn in a larger conflict. As prime minister of the emperor, you may annex Han Emperor territory at a cost. I'm basically Dong Zhuo now. This gives you a big boost to your whatever you call this. Your marquise, your marquis, your duke, whatever these are. You're gonna get a big boost to all that because you just went up way in power. People are not gonna like you so much for doing that, but it is a power play because eventually I'm gonna go up here. I'm gonna take my Silk Road. I'm gonna piss off Matang and Han Sui or whoever that is up there, and I'm gonna basically take this whole portion of the map as Kong Rong and meet my allies somewhere in the middle here. That was my plan, at least for this campaign. I haven't played it through yet, but that's just the way it works. So that's annexing in a nutshell. Also, if you're playing as Yellow Turbans, which I haven't done a whole lot of, say I mean, this is Huang Shao. He's an actual Yellow Turban leader. But say I had some Yellow Turban rebel army spring up because of bad satisfaction, and they took one of my cities. The Yellow Turbans can walk over and annex those cities again if the army isn't sitting in the city, um, and it becomes their city, and they get to do that for free. They don't even have to pay for it, which is pretty cool. Because the Yellow Turbans, they're just on a whole nother level of shenanigans. So another thing, I think I talked about liberating. Maybe not. So when you have the option of liberating vassals, and basically what that is say I'm about to go to war with Wan Shu, and he vassaled Wang Quang over here. I hope I'm pronouncing these names right. They sound so goofy to me sometimes. Uh, I don't want to get hit in the back by Wang Quang, so I can try to basically release him from his master, and then I automatically go to war with whoever his master is because they don't like that I just took away his his pawn. And then we go to war together against one shoe. Uh, it's a pretty good thing, especially later on, because some of these guys they're going to try and vassal everyone they can. You're going to want to get rid of some of those vassals so you're not fighting wars against multiple armies at once. Maybe some of those armies will join you in the fight, and it'll make things easier, especially later on. Confederation, confederating or confederations. I've only been able to do this once. It's much later in the game when you're like emperor. The one time I was able to do it, the whole map hated me, except for like one guy. He was like still friendly with me, and I ended up uh, basically I was so much stronger than him, and he was friendly with me. Even though he was friendly with me, it was like a minus 60 uh, to the trade deal itself, and but I was so strong that it was like a 65 so that he actually confederated with me. And what that does is it's basically annexing them without even having to make them your vassal. They just give up to you. They just like, yeah, we will become part of your faction because we believe in your cause that much, or we're kind of forced to believe in your cause that much. So that's one way of bringing people into your territory late game, especially if you're trying to have a diplomatic campaign instead of like just a paint the map your color type of campaign. Um, and then the final thing you can do is abdication. Now this takes some serious planning. You have to have great standings. You have to be very powerful. And let's say you own two emperor seats, and there's one other emperor left, and you're so strong, and maybe you even have good standing with that other emperor, and you're like, you know what? I have the divine right to be emperor. Uh, you basically convince them to give up their emperor seat, and it's the same thing. You're gonna get it. It's like an emperor vassalizing another emperor. It is so hard to do. If you can do it and pull it off, dude, grats to you. Record that shit, take a picture, post it somewhere, because not a lot of people are getting that one pulled off. I'm telling you right now. You need to really play your diplomacy game all the way through to the end to be able to pull that one off. But it is an option. Um, so yeah, and that's about all I got for you in this guide. I'm sure there's more things to learn, but if you have any questions, I'll try to answer them in the comments. I also stream live on Twitch almost every day at twitch.com slash ratpack412. I'll put a link in the description. You can always talk to me there. Don't forget to leave a like and follow, and hit that bell because I will be coming out with more guides soon on things like espionage and spies, economics, characters, courts, and satisfaction, and eventually faction guides. Or if I get a lot of people asking for something specific, I'll bump that up on the list and make it a priority to get out faster. Uh, but this guide was thrown together pretty quickly, and I know I have poor audio, so I do apologize. But I will be working on making better videos in the future. But with that, I'm Rat Pack. Thanks for watching. I'm out.